Welcome to Mal and Matt on Mondays. This is week one, and this is a new weekly series that we're starting for at least the next couple weeks, hopefully the next couple of months, and we're just going to see how it goes. And we hope that you will enjoy it. And I'm Mallory. I'm the founder of More Than an Admin. I'm obviously joined by my lovely boyfriend, Matt, who I'll let talk in just a little bit. But some of you might remember during the pandemic, I hosted a weekly Instagram series called Peace Over Panic. I know my sister and my aunt are on, so they definitely should remember this. And it went really well. And I've been wanting to do another weekly series for a long time. And so, Mackenzie's on. Shout out to Mackenzie, one of my good friends. But I've been wanting to do another series for a long time. So I was so happy when Matt said that he would do this with me because, it's fun to do it alone, but it's really fun when you have a co-host that you can also rely on as well.
Co-host is strong.
And I thought that this would be fun also because, yes, my Aunt Denise was also one of the guests. But I thought that this would be fun because we're also long distance. For those who don't know, Matt lives in Pennsylvania. I live in Florida, although right now I'm actually in New Jersey in my mom's basement. And so I thought that this would be cool for our friends and family who don't really get to see us interact so much because we're long distance, that this is kind of a cool way for them to get to know more about each of us, get to see and learn more about each of what we're doing, hopefully learn something new along the way. And and you guys get to see us be all lovey-dovey sometimes and banter back and forth, which I told Matt we need to keep it very professional because we're so used to FaceTiming all the time. And, I'm always just like, I'm going to get like so cheesy and so lovey-dovey about you that I have to remind myself that we are on a public platform. But I'm going to do my best. And then the other thing is that, as Matt mentioned before, this is the first time that he's on Instagram Live. So I told him that I might do some of the talking or more of it rather, which I mean is no surprise for those who know me. But besides that, I said to him that I can kind of help him lean into Instagram Lives, and sometimes the chats can be a little bit distracting. Like even seeing my sister's LOL was a little bit distracting for me. It throws me off, and I know that again he might feel that way at first. Let me see what else. And then the format of this. So the format is that we are going to start with one health hack. We are going to do one piece of content that we think that each of our communities, the John 5 movement and the More Than Admin communities, can learn from. And then we also are going to share one Bible verse to hopefully encourage everyone on the call. And then, we might have special guests here and there. If you want to be a special guest, let us know because it takes the heat off of us. We love to have special guests every once in a while, at least. And then we're hoping to keep this maybe 15, 20 minutes. This one might be, I don't know if it will be a little bit longer, but because we have this intro, it might be. And then if you have any questions, you can put them in the chat. We'll hopefully monitor along the way. But that's it for me now. I think, Matt, it's your turn to introduce a little bit of yourself and what is the John 5 movement.
Well, I wanted to preface this that you are an absolute natural at this. The way that you just flow, it's incredible. So I just want to give you props on that. So as she said, my name is Matt, founder of the John 5 movement. A little bit about me is, I have a crazy story that I will get into a little bit later, but it's pretty much for men building strong foundations through faith and overall fitness. This is the start of it. I started this about 4 or 5 months ago, so relatively fresh, relatively new. And as I read scripture, as I read the Bible, more and more implements, more and more features will be added onto it later in the future. So I'm very excited. I'm excited to get going.
Love it. And also for those who don't know, I feel as though we should also maybe say that a big reason for why the reason why we met was because we met off of Twitter in 2022 when I was a friend of a friend retweeted Matt, and he was all about faith and fitness, which I was looking for, guys to just be friends with that were in faith and fitness. And then I saw him and I was like, yeah, God, if we're meant to be, keep him for me until after I leave Google. And then He kept them for me until after I left Google, and here we are. But so when I knew, or I should say that when Matt and I first met and he shared a lot of his testimony and his story, I was really inspired by all the stuff that he included. And I loved that he was doing fitness training and also incorporating a lot of faith into the stuff that he was doing. So, yeah. And then for more than an admin, with what I'm doing. So I'll say that right now, the mission is to influence how the world views administrative professionals and also just basically encourage people to like see people as more than their job title. I'm be really honest and really blunt with everyone. A lot of people are like, what are you doing? And what is more than an admin? And there's a lot of stuff also in the pipeline. The thing that, again, being extremely direct as I usually am, is I feel like I have 50 mission statements that I'm choosing between. And I feel like God has not said, like, stick with this one. For some reason, I feel like he's saying, like, hey, you need to maybe switch it up a little bit. But I'm kind of unsure on the exact one. So once I wordsmith that, because Matt knows I'm always telling him, I'm like, wordsmithing another mission statement. And I'm someone that when God tells me to move, I move. So I'm like, once I get it. But for right now, it's really just the podcast and the YouTube channel and doing some speaking and coaching here and there. But there's a lot coming, like probably too much coming, that people are going to be like, what the heck, Mallory seems like she's everywhere. But Matt and I feel as though are doing way more of a slower approach than going fast, because just like Matt's doing, trying to create a strong foundation for the men in his community, I feel like each of us are trying to create a strong foundation in what we're building and also our relationship at the same exact time too. Like I tell people all the time that you know, we have been really trying to do things the slow and right way versus just running in the wrong direction really fast. So enough about those. Let's start with our first health hack for everyone. And Matt, you can start with yours first.
Okay. So my first overall health hack is to track your workouts. I've been training personally since 2012, took it a little bit seriously in 2015. And I actually didn't start tracking my training, repetitions and weights up until 2018, 2019. So it's been like 8 years of me flip-flopping through workouts, uh, spending 2 weeks on a workout and then switching, but without any sort of tracking. And so I actually left a lot of gains on the table, and a lot of progress that if I were to track those, starting in 2012, 2013, all the way up to now, I would have been in a significant better place with overall training. But better late than never. So I started tracking it really seriously in 2022. And I've been consistent with that. I've been seeing some progress. So that's the number one health tip that especially if you're a first timer in the gym, and you're asking for one advice that you can take with, is track your workouts. Stick with 3 to 6 exercises and do those for months, years, and then you'll see immense progress.
So how do you track your workouts? Do you use an app? Do you use like pen and paper? Because so many people do it differently. So I'm curious how you do it.
Yeah, so some people do it through pen and paper. I personally do it through the Notes app on my iPhone. It's just simply I write down the workouts. For example, I'll have a pull day, and I'll have 4 to 6 exercises. The sets, whether I'm doing 2 to 3 sets. I have the rep scheme, and I also have the weights as well. And I try to I try to track the like my best, right? So personal records that day, and then I try to beat it each and every single week. And then I may add some little side notes here and there of how I felt, whether I should go lighter on this day or heavier the next day. And so that's kind of how I do it. It's bare bones. It's very simple. And yeah.
Love it. An acronym that I learned when I started working with you is PR. I didn't know what that meant at first. I thought at first I was public relations, business minded, and then I learned very quickly it was personal record.
Yep.
And for those that don't know, when Matt and I first started dating, I was like, hey, I actually asked God for a personal trainer last year. Will you basically be that personal trainer for me? And I lost 18 pounds working with him, which is why I tell people all the time, it's not just that he's my boyfriend and I think he's awesome, even though he is. It's like I actually saw results. And one of the things that he taught me was tracking my workouts because I had never done that either. And I can't say enough how amazing it has been to track my workouts, even though I, for the last couple of weeks, have been horrible and have not worked out because I've been tracking. I've actually been with Matt and my sister calls, and they've been keeping me for my workouts a little bit. No, I'm only kidding. But
Guilty.
seriously, I I feel like tracking has made a huge difference because I didn't really realize how many reps I had to do, which Matt really helped me also with. But I think again, like tracking it has been so helpful because before him, I just kind of did whatever I wanted to in the gym. And it was really good to have an actual plan and to stick with it. Um, but do you have anything that you want to add?
Um, Maybe just to whether if you have an exercise that you don't like, it's okay to switch and supplement, but you don't want to go straight too far from the variation. There might be there like in the gym. There's plenty of variations, and that's why it's one of the best things for your health. Like it's not a one size fits all. All different parts, whether you choose, body weight or a machine or dumbbells and barbells, it really doesn't matter. There's all these types of variations that you can use and that you can switch out. But make sure once you find a variation that you do like, is that you stick with that and then for a long period of time.
Yes, one more compliment I will give him for the next at least 5 minutes is that anytime that I don't like doing a workout, an exercise with an exception of a couple, because I'm like, even if I hate it, I just force myself to do it, is that he always gives me substitutes, which sometimes I feel as though it's hard to know what you can actually substitute for which muscle, which again is like very good. I think why before Matt, I also had a trainer when I was at Google who I also loved. And that was something that I loved about working with a trainer is if I didn't like something, they were very quick to give me a substitute for the same exact muscle groups. My number one health hack right now is you must check every single ingredient for every single food that you put into your body. And let me tell you, you need to not only look it up, you need to research it. You need to know exactly what you are putting in your body because I can't tell you how many times people tell me that they eat healthy. And then for some of my special friends that I feel very comfortable saying, well, okay, even Matt, he knows. I'm like, well, what's your definition of healthy? Because my definition of healthy is you can only have one semi-bad ingredient and I will accept that. But for my meals, when I'm in Florida, not when I'm not in New Jersey, it's possible for me to eat like strict. But when I'm cooking, I allow myself out of the week 3, like quote unquote cheats. But they're like pretty strict compared to other people. Like ketchup can be considered a cheat for me. But I know Matt, like when he's in my apartment, knows he's going to be in boot camp a little bit. But I will say, and you know this, and you've told me this yourself, and everyone who has told me is when you eat the way that I do in Florida, you feel better. And this is why I continue to eat the way that I do. And the reason why it's so important to check ingredients and to actually know what's in your body is once you kind of know what you like you can find products and not like what you can find different brands that have the right ingredients in them. And obviously to me, maybe actually it's not obvious, but like you have to know like obviously what's a whole fruit or like whole vegetable, what is a different word for sugar. Like there are, I mean, I don't know how many words for sugar there are, but there are a lot of them. So for people who are not informed, they might think like dextrose or malodextrose or something like that. Like all these terms might not be sugar, but they're actually just different terms for sugar.
Yeah.
So sometimes again, people will say to me like, oh, this is like fine. And I'm like, no, it's not. And another rule of thumb is that you really want to look at the first 3 ingredients. That's kind of like so usually it's in the order of from most to least in the food. So you want to make sure that, again, the first 3 ingredients are something that is like whole food, natural. So that's what I do a lot. And anyone that knows me knows that when I go to the grocery store, it's an event. It is like, I am so pumped when I go to a new city or state. I look at all the local brands. I'm in there for at least an hour. And the reason
At least an hour, 2 to 3 hours. That's
okay, you're going a little bit too far, but definitely an hour. He knows this because we just went the other night at like 10 p.m. and I was still in there for an hour. And Yes, exactly. Only one ingredient foods. Exactly. That's what I try to do. Unless it's again a lot of fruits or vegetables, and that's okay to have obviously more than one fruit or vegetable in there, but you have to know those terms. Like some people don't know what a dragon fruit is. Shout out to my mom and my stepdad who I showed what a dragon fruit was like a year ago. So now they know. But if you don't know what that term is, even though it says fruit in it, so maybe it's a little bit of a you know, people should know what that at least what the word means fruit. Like if you don't know some of fruits and vegetables, you might not think it's healthy when it actually is. But yeah, I stay in the grocery store a long time because the thing is with me is as much as I'm really strict with my diet, I love everything that I eat. Like I don't have a problem sticking to my diet in Florida because I now know what I like and what I don't like. But the thing is that you have to find brands, like I said, that are healthy. So that's why I go to a lot of different local grocery stores when I'm traveling because then you might not have it in your state, but you can often order things that are like somewhat close. Like if something's in Georgia, sometimes they will ship to Florida, for example. So that's kind of my big health hack is I'm really strict about the ingredients that I put into my body and I feel very empowered. Like I think some people get really like I mean I get very upset and very rage worthy when I'm at a restaurant or something and I find out what they cook with. But I do also find it very empowering because I think that cooking for me is such a like labor of love now. Like I love to cook, even though I'm not super like great at it. Even though Matt eats all my food, Matt
Fantastic.
eats all my food. So that's the bar right now is will he eat the food and will he say it's at least decent? Um, but anyway, so that's our health hacks. So the next thing we have is what is one piece of content that you think can help people in the John 5 movement
Oh wow.
or really anyone?
A little bit of one. Okay. I watched this interview about 11 months ago, and this is one of my favorite interviewers. His name is Patrick Bet David, and he interviewed one of my favorite athletes of all time. Actually, my favorite athlete on time, Tom Brady. I know that's going to ruffle a lot of feathers, especially Giants fans. I actually, well, you know, Giants. You know, you got that two lucky wins, but it is what it is. But so he had a was interviewing him, and Tom and Pat asked whether his discipline slash killer mindset was it a learned behavior or was it something that he was born with. And for the longest time, you know, when you heard the word killer mentality, you hear Michael Jordan, you hear Kobe Bryant, you hear Tom Brady, right? I always thought that they were born with that. But what I learned, especially from Tom, is that it was developed from him. For example, he stayed 5 years at Michigan, and pretty much he was competing for the starting job all the way up to his 5th year. So that's why he was drafted, you know, all the way in the fifth, sixth round, because he always had that chip on his shoulder because he never knew that his job was secure, so he had to keep on working and working. And even when he put in the work, you know, he sometimes wasn't even rewarded for it. And so, but he kept on doing it, kept on doing it and doing it. And over time, you develop that chip on your shoulder. And then that carries over, you know, throughout your whole life, essentially. And that's why the greatness that he has and all the things that he's accomplished was because of you know, being in those trenches for a while. And I think, you know, applying that mentality, that the fact that it's discipline, it's a learned behavior, that means that anybody can do it, right? And so whether if you're, you know, working at a job and you may not feel like you're getting the recognition that you deserve, you know, continue to put in the hours, continue to put in the work. You know, somebody will recognize that, you know, because, you know, you may not can teach talent, but you can teach work ethic. You know, ethic is something that everybody can have and improve and get better at. And so that really applies to, you know, all things, especially, you know, with the John 5 movement, especially with, you know, the faith component and the fitness component as well. That it takes work ethic. You know, God doesn't say like, oh my gosh, like, okay, here's the Bible, don't do anything with it. Like it takes work to read it. It takes work to understand it. It takes work to apply it. The same thing goes with fitness. You know, as I said before, and I mentioned, you know, having to track your workouts. It takes time, you know, out of your day to write down and make sure that you're accurately tracking, so that you are making progress, that you can actually see from a larger perspective that you actually are making progress. So that's one of my most favorite interviews that I've ever watched, because any Tom Brady interview I love, but this one in particular was special.
I love that. Patrick McDavid is very good at interviewing, and you did well by picking Tom Brady, who, as you like to point out, the Giants beat twice. Let's just say that. And so you didn't pick any Eagles or Cowboys players. Good. And Tom Brady brought a championship to Tampa Bay when I was in Tampa. So, okay, he's in my good graces a little bit more. Um, but in all seriousness, I think that what you mentioned about a lot of people think that you have to come out the womb and be disciplined and be focused and all these things. But I think people forget that there are a lot of people who didn't have the discipline and didn't have whatever was the focus, the intelligence, anything when they were first born, and that you have to really work at these things. So love that. Love that.
Of course.
Um, my piece of content that I found helpful, which some of you might have listened to my last More Than an Admin podcast or saw on LinkedIn, is a big shout out right now to Cody Sanchez. I know Hallie is listening and joining, and she's also a fan of Cody. And so is Helani Ellis, who was one of my podcast guests, who also loves Cody Sanchez. And it was her interview on the Diary of a CEO, which is a Stephen Bartlett. He's the host of that podcast, which is my favorite podcast out there. And Cody talked about a lot of things. I want to highlight two. Is one, she talked about how a lot of people think that you have to basically right away be an entrepreneur or be a business owner. And I liked how she talked about, was my mentality, was how she said to people, go work for someone great and go learn and make mistakes on their dime, and then go out and do something great. And if people don't know my story, when I became an admin, a big reason why I said yes to the first assistant role I had was I always wanted to be, well, not always, but in college, I decided I want to be more of an entrepreneur or have anything of my own. It could be a nonprofit, it could be a social venture, it could be a business, anything, but I didn't have the idea. And so I was like, you know what? What's the next best thing I can do? Oh, I can be someone's assistant, learn what it's like to be a great leader or a horrible leader, like learn the good and the bad. And then when I have the idea, that I can then go and run with it. And then when I went to Google, I actually said during a lot of my interviews, I will be your best admin, but I won't be your longest. And I had thought I was only going to be there for 2 years. And obviously I stayed for 7 years and then left to go now run More Than an Admin and do some other ventures of mine. So I love that she gave that advice, because I think that a lot of people think that you just have to go right away for your entrepreneurial pursuit or venture. But I think that there's a lot of goodness that can come from actually working a 9 to 5 job. And then the other thing that I loved, that again I've called out publicly in the podcast and my LinkedIn post, was she just launched or heavily invested in BizScout, which is essentially, think of Zillow but for businesses. And I think that every admin should go tell their boss about this for a lot of reasons, which again, like a little teaser, go watch the podcast for the full thing. But I think that a lot of times when admins come to me, they're asking for advice on how do I seem like I'm a strategic partner? How do I know about business acumen? And I would say go watch content like One Cody's, but also you need to stay up to date with things that are going to be interesting to your bosses, to the leadership team that you support. And BizScout, I think, is something that not just for your leadership team, but even ourselves should know about, because what Hallie, I see your name, so that's why I'm saying your name. What Cody is doing is she's making it more accessible to anyone, including, like Matt, me and you, to buy a business, because the platform helps you kind of scope out what businesses are wanting to be sold, just like what houses are trying to be sold. So I think that platform is amazing. I've said to you, I hope that we can buy a business together one day, whether it's off there or just somehow, some way. And I know, Hallie, I know. I'm like, I hope someone thinks I look like this. But anyway, so everyone should go check out BizScout. And the next thing that we have, sorry, quick transition, but is one Bible verse, Matt, that you want to share with everyone.
Okay, so the Bible verse that I chose is one of the most important Bible verses that I've ever read. It's personally the Bible verse that saved my life and is the catalyst for the John 5 movement. And that is John 5 verses 8. And it says to get up, pick up your mat, and walk, right? And it's such a like a simple phrase, right? But it means the world. There's so many you know, not interpretations, but there's so much meaning behind it. But I'll leave you with this. God wants you to participate in in His plan for you, right? You may be stuck in a situation where you don't want to be in. You may be stuck in a rock and a hard place, but God is really calling you to really get up and participate in the calling that He has for you. And it takes obedience. It takes obedience. It takes faith. You may not know where you're gonna go, but all it takes is just one foot in front of the other, and that belief and that willingness to say yes, yes, Lord. Let me just take this walk, and the rest is history. I have that verse in my heart, for a long time. And it is, pretty much with any venture that I'm, pursuing and, building to John 5, all it takes is one foot in front of the other. And that, as long as you seek God, everything else will come into place. So that's the verse that I chose.
So you're trying to make it very hard for me not to be cheesing about you and to say these compliments. Because I mean, come on.
Gotta keep it professional. Gotta keep
I
it
know.
professional.
I know. I love when you speak scripture to me
Of course.
and to the whole world.
Of course.
But this was actually one of the verses that when I first met Matt in the Starbucks on December 30th,
Mhm.
he shared, and it kind of, especially he shared his entire testimony with me, which you can find more on his website. But what I loved was I love how passionate Matt is. And again, if you know his entire testimony, which he has on his website, and also has done a few podcasts that you should go check out, is I just love how one verse, especially this one, has like just changed so much of his life and how now he's using the entire book of John, the John 5 book, to help others. So please go check it out, and definitely, share that verse with other people as well. Because Matt and I talked a lot about how at the end of the day, if like one person knows the John 5 story or John 5:8, like he's doing his job. I always tell him that. I'm like, one person is saved or one person is impacted through that. And that's why I
Yeah.
love that he calls it that, because it calls so many people to actually look up that verse. Like many people have asked me, like, what is John 5? And it gives us an opportunity to share that.
Yeah.
So I love
I love
that you shared that. The verse that I have, and do not have it memorized and I'm too nervous right now. So I need to read from my notes, which is Colossians 3:23-24. Whatever you do, work at it with all your heart as working for the Lord, not for human masters, since you know that you will receive an inheritance from the Lord as a reward. It is the Lord Christ you are serving. I talked about this on Helani Ellis's Exceptional EA's podcast. And what I love about this verse is two things. One, it reminds you to work hard no matter what your job is, because at the end of the day, God put you in that position for a reason and you're honoring Him by the work that you're doing. So, I used to grab coffee for my old boss, my first admin job, and I actually never had an issue with that. And I did it proud and I did it well. And I used to make tea and I used to basically be a flight attendant. And even though I honestly back then would have not said that it's like because of my faith, because I was kind of farther away from God at that time, I still did it well because I just felt like at the time, like you should still do a good job, whether you hate the job or not. And I think now this verse really speaks to when I try to work really hard in anything that I do now. And then I think the second part of this that I've kind of taken for specifically admins is our job can be really tough. Whether you're an admin or you're like Melanie or Hallie, who have been chiefs of staff, you have to remember that we don't serve humans, we serve God, we serve Jesus. And I think that it's really easy in an admin role to sometimes lose that and to do whatever your boss says and to like get so focused on your boss when realizing that that person is just a human being, and to remember who we are really serving at the end of the day. And I always, especially in the last few years when my faith was stronger, tried to always remember that. Like I never put executives on a pedestal. I tried really hard to remember that like we're on the same level, even though they might technically have a title bigger than me. So, so yeah, that's the Bible verse that I have that I hope everyone enjoys. And Matt, before we close, what is one way that people can support you in the John 5 movement right now?
Right now, you guys can go subscribe to the newsletter. It is in both my bios, both the John 5 movement and I am Matt Fontaine, which is my personal. So it is the website. You click on the website, and one of the first things that pops up on the website is subscribe here for the newsletter. So you go in, type in your email, and then all my newsletters are available, and also all the upcoming newsletters come out every Wednesday at 10 a.m. EST. So that is the number one way you guys can support me, and I appreciate all that you guys do.
Love that. And since there's a lot of women in here, let me go do an extra step call to action that Matt is too kind not to say, is go share with one male in your life, especially one that might need some encouragement or hope. Like whether it's he wants the newsletter, but even if it's like, yes, Melanie, I'm actually going to upload these to YouTube on the More Than an Admin page. So you'll see all in the show notes, but I'll send specifically to you. Don't worry. But send to one guy in your life, because whether they're Christian or not, to me, it's just even the fitness content that I think might be be good encouragement to everyone, especially like I said, once you really get to know Matt's story. I think anyone can be inspired. I mean, it's part of why I fell in love with him. So I mean, not that I want anyone else to fall in love with him. I mean, I'm like, dang, I'm like selling Matt all the time. I'm like, people are probably like, oh, is this guy single? No, he's not, he's mine. But yeah, go send his stuff, whether it's the newsletter or the YouTube channel, to at least one male in your life. It makes a huge difference. And actually, you can make a huge difference on the male in your life. And then my thing for everyone to do is to just subscribe to the YouTube channel. I don't even care if you don't watch any of the content, because I can tell you with some of my titles coming up, you will want to watch the content. So I'm not even worried about that. But just go subscribe to the YouTube channel, road to 1K, so I can get monetized. And the whole goal is to keep the membership free for More Than an Admin. And the only way to do that is if I make money over video. That's kind of the goal right now. So if you can go subscribe to the YouTube channel. And there's a lot of stuff in there. And hopefully you will get some value at it. And if anyone wants to ever be a guest on the podcast, I mean, I'm open. And then I think that's it. Matt, do you have any like closing words?
I don't think so, but I'm excited to just continue the series. As you can tell, this is my first time ever. I'm usually behind the camera, and it's recorded, edited, all that stuff, right? So doing it for a live audience was a little bit nerve-wracking at first, but that's a milestone under my belt. So I'm only gonna get better from here. So I just appreciate you guys, all you guys, for tuning in. It's been great for sure.
You did great. You did excellent.
Thank you.
Make me love me. Make me love you more for doing this. Make me love me too. You make me love myself more as well. It's a good thing.
I'm so I love that.
But thanks everyone for tuning in. Thank you again for saying yes to this. I love you always, and can't wait to talk to you after to debrief. We'll be uploading, like I said, this again to the More Than an Admin YouTube channel with all like the show notes, with anything that we mentioned, any links. Please go watch, the whole thing on there. Give us any feedback, or you can DM us as well. And the last thing I want to say is I want to give a big shout out to our friends Tawny and Matt Moore, and Tawny Reinhardt, because she started something called Noble, which I don't know if you guys can see, because I don't know what you can see, but I got the merch and the Noble merch, and she has a community for Christian women, if anyone's Christian on here and wants to check out her community. But the other thing is that this merch is like the most comfortable shirt I've ever worn. So now I'm really in the search for merch vendors for the John 5 movement and More Than an Admin. So if anyone knows a merch vendor, hit us up. But shout out to Tawny and everything that she's building with Noble. And see everyone next week. I know we went a little bit long this time, but like I said, we had to kind of set up for what the rest of the weeks are going to be. And hope everyone enjoyed, and we'll see you next week.
See you guys later.
Thanks everyone for tuning in.
Nice to meet you guys.